Hello everyone, and welcome to the Adaptation Design Tool Mentored Online Course Orientation. My name is Sherry Wagner, and I'm the Reef Resilience Program Coordinator at the Nature Conservancy and the coordinator for this month-long training. Today I'm going to give you a brief orientation and overview of the course, and then we'll hear from our mentors, Jordan West, who will give an introduction to the content of the course, and Eric Conklin and Tova Callender, two marine practitioners working in Hawaii, who will describe their experiences using the tool. The development of this course has been a truly collaborative project of the Climate Change Working Group of the Interagency U.S. Coral Reef Task Force and the Nature Conservancy. And this orientation is being recorded today, so you can view it later on if you want to go back and see anything we've talked about. And I'll also send out the link once it's posted. So to get us started today, we just wanted to find out who was on the phone, give us a better idea of who's joined us today. So I have a few poll questions for you. I'll go ahead and launch the first poll. So the question is, what's the focus region of your work? Do you work in Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Indian, across multiple ocean basins, or globally, or other? So I'll just give you a minute to respond, and then we'll show the answers. Okay, so it looks like a lot of Pacific Ocean folks, and it might just be the time of the call today. That's the case. And the next question is, what sector do you work in? Do you work at a government agency at one of these levels? Do you work for an NGO or other, private, something like that? Are you a student? Okay, so let me share the results with you. Oh, looks like a lot of federal, national government employees and some NGOs and other. Okay, thanks. And we have one more question for you. What system are you interested in using adaptation planning for? Coral reefs, wetlands, watersheds, many of these, or other? Again, I like to always give you another. None of these fit. Okay, so looks like coral reefs and multiple. So that makes a lot of sense. So that gives us a better idea. Thanks for taking the polls. Gives us a better idea of who's on the call today. So I also we had someone, David Gibbs, who's on the call, make this map for us of the people that registered today for the webinar. You guys are across the world, US, Caribbean, South America, Central America, Africa, Middle East, India, Madagascar, Indonesia. I just picked out some of the places, American Samoa, Fiji, 32 countries as of now. So these will be people that will probably be in the course with you that you can know that are taking the course at the same time as you, which is great. So welcome everyone. So here's the outline for today's webinar. First, I'll give background on the Reef Resilience Network. Then I'll go over the course schedule and activities. I'll walk you through how to sign up for the course and then take a few questions, if you have them, about what I've covered so far. Then we'll switch over to Jordan West, who'll give an introduction to the tool and content of the course. And finally, Eric and Tova will describe their experiences using the tool, and we'll have a final Q&A session with all the presenters. And so on this GoToWebinar, there's two ways you can ask questions. You can type into the question box at any time your question, or during the question period, if you raise your hand, which you do by clicking on the small hand icon on the toolbar, and you have audio, then we can actually call on you. So we might try that too. We'll see. And so if you're having any difficulties, such as trouble hearing or seeing slides, send me a message via the question box, that same box, and I'll try to help you resolve the issue. So let's get started. Some of you may be familiar with the Reef Resilience Network, but I'll tell you a bit about what we do and the resources that we have for managers. The network's a partnership effort to build the capacity of coral reef managers and practitioners around the world to better address the impacts of climate change and other stressors. And we do this, we build capacity through providing access to new coral reef science and management strategies, virtual capacity building activities such as this online course and webinars. And we'd also do in-person trainings and learning exchanges to build manager skills. And we've been conducting in-person training since 2005 and have reached managers from 75% of the countries and territories with reefs in person and with online trainings like this one. So our toolkit, the Reef Resilience Toolkit, reefresilience.org, is an online hub. It has a number of modules covering science and management strategies for resilient coral reefs and reef fisheries, effective communication strategies, and community-based adaptation. And we're in the process of developing a new reef restoration module with partners as well, which I think we're going to launch by the end of this month. And we also have over 40 case studies highlighting lessons learned and best practices managing coral reef ecosystems and supporting resilient communities. And you can also view past webinar recordings, find other online courses, and our network forum where you can connect, share, and learn from others about how to better manage marine resources. So now we'll take a deep dive into the course schedule. This is an overview of the course, which runs for 1 month from today until November 17th. There are 4 self-paced lessons, 3 webinars, and learning exercises throughout. And the time commitment we estimated for the course is about 8 to 10 hours over the month. After this orientation webinar that you're on today, you can enroll in the course and begin the lessons. Lessons 1 and 2 and the reading assignment will help introduce you to climate smart planning and the adaptation design tool, and will take approximately 1.5 hours to complete. During this time, you'll be able to interact with course mentors by posting questions and comments on our online discussion board. Then you'll move on to the next section of the course, which focuses on climate smart design for existing management actions. Lesson 3 in the assignment will take you about 2.5 hours to complete. You also have the opportunity to post questions and comments for our mentors on the discussion board. Then a second webinar will be held to go into more depth on the content and assignment that you completed in that section. And then moving on to the final section of the course on expanding your list of management actions and using the tool results to inform other steps of the climate smart conservation cycle. This section also includes an online lesson, assignment, and Q&A. And then there's a concluding webinar, and which this whole time will take you about 1.5 hours to complete. And then magically a pot of gold appears when you get to the bottom of the ocean. I hope that's how you feel once you take the course, like you've really gotten something out of it. So just briefly, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about the online lessons. There's 4. The first one features key concepts of climate smart conservation. The next lesson goes into best practices for using the adaptation design tool effectively. Next, lesson 3 is how to apply climate smart design considerations to your management actions. And the last lesson is how to expand your list of adaptation options by identifying gaps in your management actions. So that's just a brief intro to the course, and Jordan West is going to be going into a little more depth after my presentation. So I wanted you to meet the team of people. There's actually, of course, more people that were helped develop the course, but these are the folks that are most involved with you as you journey through taking this course with us. And you'll have a chance to interact with these mentors and staff. All of our mentors include experts in coral reef conservation and management, reef resilience, coastal adaptation, wetland ecology, ridge to reef management, and community climate adaptation. And they have decades of field experience among them that cover reef regions around the world. These experts will be available to answer your questions on the network forum and on our webinars, and their role is to enhance the lessons by sharing their knowledge and experiences with you. And they'll be a resource for any questions you might have on the course content. And they're all terrific and very excited to get to work with you. And I just wanted to make a special introduction to Jillian Silvertand. Up here, Jill. She's not on the webinar today, but she's our technical expert and can help on any technical issues you have with the online lessons. And you'll see her email on the course page for contacting her if you have any problems. So now let's take a look at the online course online. So this is our homepage. The course is hosted on Conservation Training, which is an open and free learning community that offers conservation-based training materials from the Nature Conservancy and our partner organizations. And this this is our direct course page, which contains all the information that you'll need to take the course, links to the lessons and assignments and webinars and dates for completing all the sections. So I wanted to show you, I'm scrolling down. When you first come into the course, it will probably be, everything will probably be closed like this. So all the sections of the course are down here. And you can either click over here to open them all and see them, or you can just open one section at a time. So I'll just show you, I just click this. And under Getting Started, there's information about and technical requirements for the course and how to take an online course. Just going to click on there to show you. There's a lot in here about navigating through the course room. And so if you have some problems with that part of it, you want to check in here first and see if there's something you can learn. And if not, you can always get in touch with us and we can help you. To navigate back from back to the home page, you're going to go up here to these breadcrumbs, as we call them. You're just going to click there and it's going to take you right back. So then I'll just scroll down. So here's the Getting Started section again. Here, if you click on mentor bios, this is information about all the mentors in the course, and you can just click through the list here to read their bios and find out more about what they do. So this is the first section of the course here. I'll just show you, we're doing the orientation webinar right now, and we'll put the recording right here. There'll be a link if you want to listen to it again or find some part of it. And then as you see, the next sections of the course are here. So I just wanted to show you, this is the first section after the webinar. And here's where you get to the self-paced lessons. So you just click to open a lesson and click enter. And then you'll see the lesson will open in the same window. And you can always leave the lesson anytime and come back. And it'll ask you if you want to go resume to where you were. So that will launch the lesson there. And I'm just going to point out the navigation is long here, down at the bottom of the page, almost like a tab on a web page. And then the same thing to go back. I just need to find exit activity, or again, I can click up here on the breadcrumbs. So when you finish a lesson, a check mark will appear next to it like these down here in this little box. And you'll need to complete all the lessons and the course survey in order to download your course certificate of completion. So anyone can get one of those if you've gone through all of the lessons. So I'm just going to go back to my presentation and go through a few more things. Now you will have to create a course account to be able to get into the course page that I just showed you. So basically you want to go to conservationtraining.org where I just was, and you'll click up here to sign up, fill out the form here and click create my new account. And then you'll get a confirmation email from Conservation Training admin desk. And apparently it might go to your spam folder according to them. So please check that as well. And then you can confirm your account by clicking the link in the email. And then one more step is you need to enroll in the course. So that just sets up your account to use in Conservation Training. What you'll need to do then is you can go back and find our Adaptation Design Tool online course. This is the link. I'll be sending this out by email, so you don't have to worry about writing it down right now. But you'll want to log in, and there's this enrollment key that you put in to enroll, and then you click Enroll Me. And finally, this is my final instruction slide, and I'm not going to go through how to do this, but I wanted to show you that the course mentors will be taking questions on our online discussion forum, the network forum. And basically, once you get an account, you can click here on groups, and you'll see our group here is Adaptation Design Tool online course, and you'll want to click here to join the group. And then once you're inside there, you'll see the topic about sending your questions that you can reply to. Okay, so this is the end of the orientation portion of the webinar. And I'm open to take a few questions right now if you have them, and then we'll move on to the rest of the presentations. So again, you can type your question into the question box, or you can raise your hand and I can call on you. So I'm just going to check and see if we have any questions here so far. Well, also we can do questions. We'll be taking questions at the end, so we can do them then too. Okay, it looks like we've got a few here. So can you say a bit about how much is reef specific versus more general? I think we'll go into that a little bit in Jordan's presentation, so let's wait for that part. We'll wait for that question. And then the other question is a course free of charge. Yes, the course is free. All the webinars are free. The whole course is free. So thank you for your questions. And now I will turn it over to Jordan West, who will go into more depth about the content of the course and introduce some concepts to you. So Jordan, I'm switching it over right now to you, and we should be getting your screen in a minute. Great, I can see it. Thanks.
How does it look?
Great. All you.
Excellent. Well, I want to start on behalf of my co-lead, Britt Parker, and myself, as well as our larger project team, to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for your interest, allowing us to share this tool, but more importantly, we'll be learning so much as you, in a sense, join the team and help us continue to test it and refine the ideas. We're really excited to be here, and for those of you on the phone, thank you. For those of you not on the phone who might be listening to this recording later, thank you for making an effort to attend afterwards. So the reason that we're all interested in this topic is that we're all aware that there are serious implications of climate change for natural resources, and therefore for how we manage natural resources. If you're thinking about coral reefs, you're probably fairly familiar with many of the direct and indirect effects of climate change. If you happen to work on other systems, you can probably insert your own stressors here. It's all about direct effects of climate that might be, in the case of coral reefs, due to thermal stress causing bleaching, morbidity and mortality, or direct damage from increased storms. You can have similar effects with other systems. There's a lot of interactive effects where climate change's effects on precipitation might be changing runoff patterns and amounts, might be having effects on sedimentation along with sea level rise, having all kinds of effects on their follow-on effects on disease. Ocean currents are being altered to some extent, which can affect connectivity between aquatic systems. And then we have this specter, this more recent specter of ocean acidification, which is due to the related factor to warming, CO2, and changes in ocean chemistry. So we came together on this project asking, how can we respond to these changes by doing more than simply saying we need to manage the stresses we're already managing and just do it better or more, but differently, because climate change has effects on the way the stressors are behaving, and climate change can have effects on the way our management practices even work. What does it look like to try to become more climate smart with what we do? I want to just quickly show our Crackerjack Corals and Climate Adaptation Planning team. You'll see Britt Parker's name. Also, David Gibbs here is an EPA fellow who, along with Britt and myself, will be the three main mentors for the team. But we had really great technical team from Tetra Tech, as well as participation from Department of the Interior, EPA, some private consulting, and of course, the Nature Conservancy. But really, this team was part of an even larger team. As Sherry mentioned, this is a collaborative effort of the Climate Change Working Group of the U.S. Coral Reef Task Force. This is an interagency group tasked to lead U.S. efforts to preserve and protect coral reef systems through coordination with 12 federal agencies, 7 U.S. states, territories, commonwealths, and 3 through the associated states. So we had a really large network of partnerships and participants that we could use to test, to first conceive this whole effort and then test it. Our starting point was this Climate Smart Guide to Conservation, which came out in 2014, and some of us on the team were involved in producing this document. It's kind of a soup to nuts explanation or examination of the latest that experts in adaptation have to say about how to integrate climate change considerations throughout management planning for natural resource conservation. As such, it covered all types of systems, used a variety of examples to develop higher level principles and practices. So as such, it was still a fairly high level document. And we realized that there's a need to tailor and test the applicability of these principles in real world situations with specific systems in specific places. So our goal with our effort through the Coral Reef Task Force was we felt that coral reefs is a perfect system to tailor and test climate smart adaptation planning principles. In this case, for coral reef management, making sure that we're building on advances that have been very rapidly occurring on the ground, especially in the areas of vulnerability and resilience assessment methods for coral reefs. So marrying the on-the-ground thinking with these higher level principles. The overview of the initial sort of translation that we did has been published in Environmental Management and is basically the overview topic of lesson 1 of the course. Let me mention here that all of the documents that I'm showing you are accessible through links within the course module, so you can access these at any time if you want to. So briefly, the climate smart approach is based on thinking about a generalized planning cycle. This isn't meant to invent some kind of new cycle. Anyone who's thinking about developing a management plan probably has some variation on these 7 steps that they have to carry out. The climate smart process is really about putting a climate lens on every step of planning to think about where climate considerations are relevant. Now, given in the case of coral reefs, the coral reef community's very sophisticated knowledge and methods for vulnerability and resilience assessment. There's a lot of information on how to do vulnerability and resilience assessments, a lot of information out there, which is not to say we can't always improve on those methods, but we felt that the real place we wanted to really push forward was here in step 4. How do you take sort of general ideas in a climate smart guide, or even in the literature for your system, take those general ideas, brainstorm options that would work for your place, and think about making them climate smart. And the central piece of this is this idea of taking general strategies from the literature that might list a variety of options, but then this process of applying a rigorous climate smart design piece. And the purpose of that is to make your description of your action more climate smart so that you can have a more robust way of comparing your actions and thinking about their effectiveness so that you can evaluate and select your final list of priority actions in a more climate smart way. I want to note that the tool can be used at multiple levels. While we originally conceived it here for step 4, to brainstorm many options and look at their climate smart design, we have found with our partners that it is also being used quite a lot in step 6. In other words, once priority actions have been selected down to a small number, folks are returning to the tool and with subject matter experts for particular projects and going to a more detailed level of planning or of climate smart design. And that basically is generating your technical results for your implementation plan. So we'll be focusing on step 4. We will be focusing on coral reefs because climate smart design is really about getting very specific about the design of an action for a particular system, for a particular place. But as I'll touch upon later, it's quite transferable to other systems. And while the examples and the homework we will be providing focuses on coral reefs, we do invite you to go ahead and do it if you want to. Put in your own actions for your own system and let us know how that goes. So here's just a picture of the flow chart of the tool. I'm not going to go through it because the overview of the tool is basically the content of lesson 2, which you're going to proceed to. 2 points I want to make is that when we call this a tool, this is not a tool in the sense of what we sometimes call tools. It's not a quantitative model. It's not a data analysis methodology. What it is basically just a structured thought process that breaks down a really complex problem into a series of smaller steps that you can get your head around gradually and with other people in a systematic way. So in that process, lots of insights emerge, which I'll mention later. And so in a sense, the process itself of working through these questions and working through these steps is just as important as the endpoint. The endpoint is to come up with a list of actions that are written in a climate smart language for more robust evaluation. But along the way, lots of things are revealed that people are finding very useful. So as I said, lesson 2 will give a very general overview of the tool. So you will then delve really deeply into each of the 2 activities. And you will get to try them out using real-world examples. So that will be lessons 3 and 4. This guide that you see, Parker et al., this is the user guide, which you also will have links to in the lesson. Everything that you're going to be seeing and learning is covered in this user guide, and in many cases in more detail. So this user guide is a great reference for you to use throughout the course. So why use the adaptation design tool? Well, what does it do? What it does is, in the first activity, it helps you apply climate smart design to your management activities. So it walks you through a process to take a specific action or a specific project and think about all the aspects that would need to be adjusted to render it as robust as possible, given the effects of climate change, both on the threat that you're managing and on just the way you can even implement your activity. The second activity it does is it supports brainstorming of additional adaptation activities that may be critically needed. What I mean by that is you may already have a management plan, but in light of examining the most recent scientific information on vulnerability and resilience, you might recognize that there are some aspects and some threats that you currently are not addressing in your plan. And so we have a compendium of information from the literature that can be used to brainstorm specific actions that you might want to add to your plan. And I would point out that if you happen to be someone who doesn't currently have a plan, who doesn't already have management actions, you can just start with this activity to start building your list of actions, the brainstorming step. You then, once you have actions, you then run them through that climate smart design process. So you can start at any point in the tool. And as I mentioned, along the way, the process generates insights, especially on information gaps and research needs. It may reveal where there's important information about vulnerability that needs to be looked for, or perhaps might need new research. So information gaps about the biology, about the climate effects, about the vulnerabilities. And you also get insights on what starts to come up is when you think in more detail about your actions, you begin to think how your action might interact with other actions in your plan. In other words, what are some of the synergies or trade-offs or conflicts that you might have between the action you're thinking about and another action? Are there any sequencing considerations where you would really need two actions to go together in order to get the outcome that you want, and they might need to be sequenced or they might need to be done together? What does the tool not do? Well, it doesn't do a vulnerability assessment for you. One of the important information resources that you do need to have in order to use the tool is vulnerability and resilience assessment information. That's step 2 of the cycle. And while generating a vulnerability assessment is outside the scope of this tool, we do provide some information in the guide about where you can go to figure out how to do basic summary vulnerability assessment and where you can get some resources. So it doesn't generate the vulnerability assessment, but you'll find when you're using the tool that it does tell you what form and content of information on vulnerability you need to use the tool. And that can send you back to step 2 in a way to go get that information. It also doesn't make your evaluation and selection decisions. This tool does not make your decision for you, but it does support a more robust decision process by giving you a large list of options that are described in a climate smart way that can help you understand the potential each action might have to be effective or not be effective, given the effects of climate change and the potential for them to interact with each other. And we hope that this will allow this evaluation and selection step to be better informed. And it doesn't produce your implementation plan, but it certainly does, especially if you go into do a deeper cut, as we call it, of using the tool on the actions that you've selected. It does generate the technical basis for your implementation plan. There's some other value added in using the tool. These things have been emerging as we have tested the tool and worked with collaborators who are now using the tool. It structures and clarifies this complex thought process, which I've mentioned. And in so doing, it provides transparency and a record of the thought process that a group of people have systematically gone through. And therefore, folks feel that it can add credibility for the decisions that they make, or it can provide justification to higher level decision makers, where they present a very well thought out and transparent record of why they are pushing for a certain decision. It helps you proceed through this thought process, looking at and acknowledging uncertainty without being paralyzed by it. It encourages you to just move through the process, and the uncertainty is one of the problems that might be noted. It can be taken into account, and it's always possible to go back through and improve information as more information becomes available. It also supports consideration of spatial and temporal scales in planning, and it provides a practical basis for higher level strategic planning. So what we've been finding with some other partners is that as they run a whole series of actions through the tool, the information that's emerging about the potential for actions to remain effective given climate change effects, in other words, their ability to be made climate smart, that begins to shed light on whether that needs to have an effect on higher level strategic climate smart planning. So who has been using the tool? Our colleagues in West Maui in the Reef to Ridge initiative have been really instrumental from the beginning of this project in helping to conceive and host our very first workshop, where we really tested the waters of interest for climate smart planning. And that's where we first conceived this tool. And they were also instrumental in hosting and participating in an expert consultation for the first beta testing of the tool. In Guanica Bay, Puerto Rico, we also did expert consultations, and we're currently continuing work with them in a collaboration because they're in the process of revising their watershed management plan for Guanica Bay watershed, and so we're helping them use the tool on more actions. The Florida Reef Resilience Program, we recently ran a tool training and workshop with them, and they're finding it useful and are hoping to continue using it in their climate smart strategy revisions. In American Samoa, there is a variety of work that's planned on climate change adaptation planning, and we're just starting a collaboration with them to support that. And finally, the Chesapeake Bay program, which has a series of goal implementation teams, has been using the tool for this higher level strategic planning that I just described, where they have run a series of very specific actions on wetlands, climate smart management questions, as well as for seagrasses and for management of toxic contaminants. And by going through the types of projects they view as meeting their current strategy and evaluating their climate smart potential, they're using that to inform revisions to their higher level strategy. So and we've worked directly with them on their workshops to use the tool for these other systems, and it's been quite transferable. So I now want to take a moment to introduce two of our really important folks who have, from the very beginning of the project, been instrumental. Eric Conklin was one of the first people to get involved in this project and came to our original kickoff for the project. He helped to review the compendium of ideas from the literature that you'll be relying on in this course. He attended the first workshop, and he attended the expert consultation. Toba Callender is our West Maui Reef to Ridge person who, as a practitioner, was super important in helping us really try to continue reality checking what actual activities, in this case, this multiple watershed planning exercise that she's involved in, can benefit from the tool, and helping with the beta testing. So I want to give Eric, as our continuity guy, a moment to reflect a little bit on his experiences with the project and the tool. Eric.
Thank you, Jordan. And thanks for the invitation to share my experiences with the group. You know, the program that I'm a part of with the Nature Conservancy here in Hawaii we do a lot of planning. We do a lot of planning with state partners and community partners in collaboration with our federal partners. And through all of these different planning opportunities, you know, we know climate change is important, and we know it's something that we need to factor into our planning activities. But frankly, we've really struggled over the years to incorporate that in a meaningful way. And, you know, for a variety of different issues, the timescales for the projected impacts of climate change haven't really closely aligned with the timescales for the planning activities. And then even when you don't have that issue, there's the question of, like, how do we actually do it? How do we bring climate change into these other planning processes? And we just really struggled with it. We knew it was important, but we just couldn't figure out the right way to bring it in and have, you know, develop these climate smart adaptation processes. And you know, when I first got invited to participate with the CCAP work, I found it really exciting. It's a lot of the things that Jordan has said, I found very much to be the case. It's the structured process that it provides is a great way to help think through that, like, how to bring that climate change piece in, how to make it real, how to make it tangible, how to make it not this huge daunting task that I couldn't possibly think about how to incorporate, but how to break that down and be like, oh, okay, I see this. I see how I can bring this in. I can take this step. I can ask these straightforward questions that the tool prompts you with to say, let me evaluate the threats that I'm considering, or let me evaluate the likely long-term success of these strategies that we're talking about in light of changes that we expect through climate change. And those prompts and examples and that compendium of information that they've pulled together, I've just found to be incredibly helpful to be able to think through how to bring that climate change piece in a very real way. Our program tends to use conservation action planning, or the open standards for conservation. One of the things that had me initially a little hesitant about this is, oh boy, another planning process. Even if it's valuable, there's only so much time and energy and community partner sort of willingness to engage in another process. And one of the things that I love about this is how flexible it is and how easy it is to adapt and incorporate into existing planning processes. Like I said, we use the Conservation Action Planning or open standards, and it's actually very straightforward and intuitive how you can incorporate these climate smart principles and the questions and prompts and compendium information, how you can incorporate that into the existing conservation action planning process and come out the other end with a much improved and climate smart plan. So I'm really excited about it. We're just now in the process of starting to integrate these design principles into the new conservation action plans that we do and reviews of existing conservation action plans. But I think it's a fantastic tool. I think it's got a ton of potential. Again, I love how flexible it is, and I think it's a great opportunity for you guys to learn more about it and see how it fits for you. I would fully expect that your experience will be like ours has been, and find it a very straightforward, valuable, structured way of making something that seems almost impossible, tangible and meaningful and achievable. And that's all I got to say.
Thanks, Eric. Tova, and especially from the more specific perspective of the Reef to Ridge initiative, what are your observations?
Well, there's going to be a lot of echoing of things that have been said, because it is really a very helpful tool in translating complexity to something you can manage. So my role was to be a part of that first workshop in July of 2014. A lot of stakeholders were brought together. It was super to be included in this process of refining the tool, not only because it's really valuable, but also we used West Maui as the example to explore. So I had the opportunity to work with other great minds to kind of think through the things that we were working on. And then in the second consultation, we were working more, that was in 2016, working more on specifically step 4 that Jordan highlighted, and looking at how the stressors were changed by climate change, and then looking at our management actions that we were already starting to work on in our existing plannings, and looking at the interactions and timings. So we did get to much deeper thinking. Sometimes it's not what is immediately apparent when you're going through a process of digging in more deeply into the stressors separate from the mitigation actions, and then looking at the relationship between the two, you get farther along. Prior to being involved in this process, we'd sort of done climate planning light, sort of a one-day version of thinking just through what are the stressors that are impacting. But this was a whole other level that we could get to. One of the tools that was really helpful, and I don't know that this is available for all the regions, but I recommend it to the regions, is we got a cheat sheet for West Maui, for Hawaii, of where we think climate change is going to take us and what we need to be considering, and that was super helpful. Not to say there weren't moments of frustration in muddling through these workshop exercises. On that first one, it was quite challenging, and I think a lot of changes were made to how to look at the process and streamline it for later on. But it was a great experience to be in the workshops and have the support of the facilitators and the note takers, so we could just really focus in on what we were trying to do. So the topic of uncertainty came up earlier in Jordan's comments, and that of course is still there. We found when we're digging in a little deeper, in some cases we don't know if an area is going to get wetter or drier, but at least knowing that there is a risk factor in either direction helps with the planning of those longer term projects, so that you can be factoring that thinking in and hedge your bets the best you can. In looking at our practices, we realized that the climate process isn't necessarily relevant for every single thing you're going to do. Some of the measures that we're looking at have a much shorter timeline than when we're likely to see climate impacts. And so we don't have to necessarily use it for everything. But it is very helpful for especially those longer term projects that require more investment and a longer planning horizon going along with them. So sometimes it's going to be those local, political, or financial factors that are influencing your decision making. But if you don't include this climate piece for those large scale, long-term projects, it can be quite disastrous. So we are in an iterative process of cycling between planning and implementing, and we'll have another round of picking out our priority actions for mitigation going forward coming up in the next year or so. And I'm really looking forward to circling back with this tool then as a part of one of the screens we're using to translate the complexity that's inherent in this sort of work to making better decisions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tova. And I was smiling when you talked about the first workshop, because we really did almost break our brains in the first workshop. And we did do a big course correction, and really in real time, that's when the tool was born. And I think you're talking about iterative processes of planning is really important. This tool is a very iterative tool as well. We're still breaking our brains on this. These are hard questions. This is your hard thought process to get through. And the tool's flexibility, as Eric mentioned, is intended to help just iteratively keep thinking over and over through it and improving as you go along. So all very much in alignment with what you guys said. Before we open it up to general questions, two things. I want to make sure I answer that question from the participant about coral reefs versus other systems. Again, in order to actually try the tool, you need a specific system. And so our examples will focus on corals. However, if you have familiarity with the vulnerabilities of your system, there's no reason why you can't run your own actions for your own system through the tool. And we're still working on this tool. So in a sense, you participants are now part of our team as we struggle to continue to grapple with these thought processes. We'll be really looking forward to hearing how it goes with both different coral reef places where folks are trying out the ideas, or with different systems. And please do let us know how that goes and how well this translates to your system if you're trying to think about it for another system. And then finally, I just want to give the other two mentors for the course a chance to say a quick hello so that you know what they sound like and who they are. The first is David Gibbs, who is an ORISE Fellow in EPA's Office of Research and Development. David, why don't you say hello and any comments you'd like to make? Off of mute. Okay, we don't seem to have David at the moment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm David Gibbs. I'm a research fellow at the EPA, and I am thrilled that all of you are going to take this course. I've been testing the adaptation design tool out with some partners in Puerto Rico, and it's worked pretty well so far, but we always want more experience with it. So if you, like what Jordan said, if you guys use the adaptation design tool for any of your own projects, in ways that we talked about or ways that we did not anticipate, we would love to hear about it. I look forward to working with you on the course, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, David. And my esteemed colleague and co-lead of the CCAP project is Britt Parker of NOAA. Britt?
Hi, guys. I just reflect what David said, that we're really looking forward to working with all of you. And this has been a long labor of love, and we're really thrilled to launch the course today and have all the resources out there working with our partners at the Nature Conservancy. It's been a great experience, and so we're really excited to have you all on board. And I look forward to speaking with you over the next month or so via the forum and through the webinars. And good luck and have fun with it.
Thanks, Britt. So Sherry, I think we're ready to handle questions.
Yes, great. Thank you, everyone. So go ahead and type any questions that you have for our speakers into the question box, or if you'd like to ask your question of them, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. So one of the questions that we have probably for Jordan. Do I have to already have a management plan or management actions in order to use the tool?
No, you do not. The two activities of the tool, you can start with either activity 1 or activity 2. We start by talking about an existing action as an example, because a lot of folks who are using the tool do already have a plan. However, the second activity of the tool is to brainstorm the actions that you want to put into your plan. So if you don't already have a plan and you're just building one, you would just begin with activity 2 of the tool. And then once you have some actions that you've selected through that brainstorming exercise of activity 2 of the tool, then you would Climate Smart design them. So in this course, we'll be, starting with some actions, but it could go the other way in practice if you were building a plan from the ground.
Great. Okay, another question. This is for Eric. Could Eric say more about how it integrates well with open standards? Eric, you might have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's just, let's see, you can essentially treat it in a very modular way and essentially take the module from the Climate Smart adaptation and apply that to the relevant part of the open standards process. So when you're evaluating threats, there's a series of prompts and questions that CCAP has developed that you can just apply into the evaluation of those threats. So like questions like, this is your threat now, but how do you expect it to change? And examples of the kinds of changes you might expect to see. And I have found that very useful to say, okay, here's my current threat, but by looking at those prompts, evaluating that threat and the trajectory of that threat a bit differently. And then similarly, when you move on to the strategies, it's okay, like we tend to focus on the sort of short term and like the open standards process for evaluating threats. You've got that generally sort of 5-year time horizon for evaluating the efficacy of a strategy. But the prompts, questions, examples within CCAP, I think really help refine that and help you think about that longer term climate change adaptation piece, and can highlight examples of strategies that might work great today, but are going to start failing a few years down the road as the threats and changes from climate change start coming down the pike. So like to me, those are the sort of core things, is just a series of questions, prompts, examples that you can essentially just bring into the open standards discussions of threats and strategies and really help make those much more robust and climate smart.
Great, thanks. Someone asked, will we receive certificates for this training? And I mentioned them a bit when I was talking about going through the lessons. Yes, there's actually a self-downloadable certificate that you can get after you go through the lessons and take the survey at the end. So you'll see that on the training page. Another question, Jordan, do we need a specific case study to work on for this course? So it's kind of related to the management plan, but it's a little different.
Well, you will be provided with examples when you take the lesson. So if you don't have your own case study, both when going through the lesson, you'll be given examples, and then our little homework exercises where you get to try it out for yourself, you will also be provided with both vulnerability information and specific actions that you can use. So in this case, it'll be for Guanica, Puerto Rico, and you would just pretend that you're them. However, as I said, for folks that do have their own, you can use your own instead. And you really do need to have a particular place and particular actions, because that's really where the rubber hits the road and where the theory becomes practice. So like I said, the specific examples that you can use will be provided.
Okay, another question, I think for Jordan also. Do the ideas that come up with the CCAP tool include socioeconomic considerations, management options, and considerations, or is it exclusive to biophysical?
So that's a really, really great question, because it allows me to mention that, you know, as I said, when I said that lots of insights emerge, there are these notes columns in the worksheets where we encourage you to write down the things that come up that are not purely the ecology piece, not purely the biophysical piece, because while we're focusing on, you know, what is the technical climate smart potential for manipulating the system in this way, or for, you know, dealing with a stressor, that's the focus of the tool. When you do get to that evaluation and selection step, that is where all the other important criteria that go into decision making come in. And that is where you have really other really important criteria like cost, socioeconomic needs or considerations or interactions or pressures, the urgency or political expediency or opportunity, or, you know, there's a million really important criteria. And so that those things do naturally begin to come up, and we record that in these notes columns, and that goes into that information and gaps in information needs. Often from that column comes not only what do we need to research to understand vulnerability better, but often it also includes, hey, there's this really important socioeconomic consideration. Let's write down this reference, this paper. We're going to need to come back to this when we do evaluation selection. It's an important link. How do different actions link to actions for those who are working on socioeconomic issues, et cetera? And we've had some people, I've had at least 2 or 3 times now, social scientists come up to me at conferences really interested in using the tool for social sciences and for socio-ecological planning. And we haven't gotten that far yet, but I'd be really interested to get feedback from folks on how it could be extended or used in parallel, and how those linkages, you know, can better be made as you go through the, you know, the biophysical consideration. So thanks for raising that.
Thanks, Jordan. Okay, if you have any other questions, go ahead and type them into the question box. Somebody asked if I can't take all the webinars, can I still take the course? Yes, you can. We know we don't have a time zone that works for everyone, since we have people from all over the world. So if you have a colleague who might want to take these, or you're going to be in the field and you can't make all of them, we're hoping that you can still join by taking the course, the lessons, and doing the assignments, and then using the recordings as needed. Well, so we're coming to the end of our hour here, and we've thrown a lot at you for this orientation webinar, but basically I'll be sending out some of the instructions that I went over by email. And again, you can email me if you have additional questions, and you can also post questions on our network forum as well. So I want to thank all our presenters today, and thank you participants for joining us, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.